brought in this bill with a good intention of improving banking, which we all are happy to be a part of that system, with more transparency and make sure that every depositor and investor is protected. What does a bank bring to you? Bank is a relationship only of trust. You trust the bank, that's why you go to a bank. So clearly, when it's a relationship of trust, the first thing you expect is protection in that relationship. So I appreciate what she has done, but I'd like to ask her a few questions which she could kindly answer in her reply. Is in point 3, clause B, you have the suggestion given is regarding the tenure of the directors in the cooperative banks. My suggestion to the Honorable Finance Minister is, like when we did the Companies Act, we had made it prospective. So whether you make it 8 years or 10 years, whatever you've recommended, can we make sure that it's prospective? Because what will happen if right now there's such a big change in the system, there will be a whole generation of people, of directors, who will have to either be moved out. So that could create a huge disruption. So why not make it prospective? So starting from this year, it's a suggestion. Maybe you can put it a few years here and there. But I think it will help the industry. So it could be a plan of the next 5 to 10 years that a new crop, if you're probably wishing to bring in. Because in cooperative, sir, like you and I get elected, in the cooperative banking, they're elected members. So an elected member, they have capped it. I don't know what the intention of the government is to cap it. I'm sure it's a very noble intention. But if it's prospective, it will really help the industry. Hence, I'm making this recommendation to her. In the second point where she has talked about governance, standardization, and making sure that the depositors are protected. Sir, I have this question, which in the PMC case, the Honorable Finance Minister was most helpful the last time when we reached out to her for help in this case. But there's another bank called Shivaji Bhosle Sahkari Bank in Maharashtra, which is a cooperative bank. And there are many banks pan-India where the investors are not protected. Then they put the 5 lakh rupee cap. When you say, the normal reply from the government is that 95% people get their deposits back. It's only the 5% who don't get it. It's the large ones. Sir, from 5 to 10 to 15 to 25 is not a large amount. And what happens in these kind, I'm going to make a very pragmatic statement now, is really if somebody does a financial fraud in this country, should we put them in jail? Should be the first action. My question is, it's an humble suggestion which has come to me from people in my constituency and my state, that when there is a financial fraud, you pick up somebody, put them in jail. They are sitting in jail for 10 years, for I'll say. Nothing happens. People are still suffering. They don't get their money back. So what is the big advantage of arresting somebody? I'm not saying don't arrest them. What I'm trying to suggest is, why not first make that person pay back to all the poor people who he owes or she owes the money to, and then put them in jail or whatever system you want. So in any financial fraud, because what happens is the PMC, like an example, which she has been very indulgent towards us in helping, when those people, that entire family was arrested, for years nobody got any hearing for the reason that all the assets were in their name. There was nobody in the family to sell it, so the deposit never got any money. And then what happens if it's in a huge litigation, the government goes to court, it takes forever. It's the same thing what has happened in the IBC Act. The intention of the IBC Act was very, very good. You put them into solvency, but what happens? The court, which was first an arbitrator, a facilitator has become an arbitrator now. So you go to court, but justice is never done. So what is the whole intention of, I'm not saying, please don't misunderstand me, I'm not saying if somebody does a fraud, don't arrest them. Please do arrest them. But can we first have a system where you pay back the depositors? What is the intention of doing all this? Of cleaning up the system to making it a fair justice system so that the depositor is protected. How will you protect the depositor if he or she doesn't get the money back in time? They don't get loans, their children's loan, their insurance, their education loans. So how does it help? Or health services. So the first thing I think we really need to think, put our minds up, maybe you can send it to a finance committee to think about it with a solution, put all our minds, because nobody is against this bill. So how do we innovate to the next step? Strengthen our banking system and make sure the depositors is my suggestion to the Honorable Finance Minister. And she's also suggested that the Investor Education Protection Fund. The protection fund is like a pension fund. Now this government for years have been raising it, sir, that the EPS 95, it's a little bit away from the banking bill, but I'd like to highlight, I'm just drawing a comparison, that the EPS 95 pensioners have given money which is lying with the government. They don't get the money that was committed to them. Now, in a pension, for years, it's been a decade. I'd like to quote, unfortunately, he's no more with us, but Honorable Arun Jaitley ji, when he was the finance minister, had committed to the EPS 95 people to get the money that they deserve. It's their own pension money, but they never got it. So I don't want this scheme also to go in the same way, because we've had a history. So I hope that this Investors Education and Protection Fund, since you're calling a pension and a protection fund, is something very similar. So I hope there is no confusion in any of this, and the EPS 95, which is the pension money, they should also get it. One most important point is the cyber. As a matter of fact, just today, in today's newspaper, it has come, sir, that just in Delhi alone, 452 crores cases worth of scams in banks have occurred just in the last 1 year. This is just, I'm talking only about Delhi, sir. 452 crores. So how are we going to ride over the technology? How are we going to ride over dark net? So how is this, what is government going to do, or are you working with the banks? Because if you are making sure that you don't want scamsters, you want investors to be protected, so all these old senior citizens whose money is lying in the bank, how are we going to help them and protect them? Because a lot of times they get little notes, they click on it, and the money is gone. So what intervention is the government doing for technology? It's going to be very, very hard. I do understand, because not necessary that this dark net is anybody sitting in India. It could be anywhere in the world. So what intervention is the government doing to safeguard all the securities in the bank? Two small points I'd like to ask. That they were talking about all the banks, which Samvit Patraji extensively talked about how well the banks are doing. I appreciate that the mergers really did the good job of the merging, was a very good suggestion and an idea, and that's why the banks are looking much better and stronger. But was it the bank balance sheet appropriation that really made the magic? And writing off or haircut, you can call it whatever, was the reason that the banks are looking stronger? So if you could kindly clarify and see what it is. And one last point is that a lot of you talk about the Mudra loan, Government of India gives a lot of sovereign guarantee for many things. But there's a new thing which we are seeing, especially in our constituencies, for farmers' education loans, that the banks are giving a lot of money to NBFCs. It's a very last small point.
Please.
NBFCs. Now, when the bank gives a loan, it's in, say, 5%, 6, 8%. When there is they give it to NBFCs. So the core job of the bank is to give the loan. They are outsourcing it to NBFCs who are increasing the interest rates. So how do we control this interest rate? Because it's happening in a lot of farm loans that the NBFCs the interest rates are very high while the banking is not. And the last very, very small point, which I know she will give us a clarification, that banking globally is becoming smaller because the deposits in the banks are going down, because in the economies which are fast growing, people are moving to mutual funds as an option. So this is not this is not for the bill, but eventually, maybe 5-10 years from now, since we're talking about banking, is the government have some plans of the growth of banks? Because if the deposits will eventually over a period of time go down, and people will prefer to go to mutual funds over banking, and conservative safe deposit as an option. So where does banking go in the next few years? Since this is such a comprehensive bill you're bringing for safety, I think we will have to think about this. So I ask her that with the economy being the way it is, because in the last quarter the economy has come down to 5.4. And I know that she has, the Honorable Finance Minister herself has been quoted in a newspaper that she's looking to cut the interest rates. So is this an option they are looking at? Because the Commerce Ministry and the Finance Ministry have been quoted today. So with the slow growth, unemployment going up, the food inflation going up, what is the government's plan? Because this was 5.4 is something we've been predicting for last, because India is no more an insulated economy with the global crisis. I would request her to please talk about how she is going to look at the growth story of India. Thank you.
Thank you. Sri Konda Vishwa Reddy.
Ravinder Vaikar.
So, sorry, Sri Ravinder Vaikar. Ravinder Vaikar thereafter. It is there? Okay.
But that's her style. That's her style. எப்பவுமே she believes in positivity.
Okay.
बैंकिंग कानून संशोधन विधेयक 2024। आज मैं इस सदन में बैंकिंग लॉज अमेंडमेंट बिल 2024 पर अपने विचार रखने के लिए खड़ा हूँ। ये विधेयक भारतीय बैंकिंग प्रणाली को सशक्त और आधुनिक बनाने की दिशा में एक ऐतिहासिक कदम है। ये विधेयक न केवल बैंकिंग क्षेत्र में पारदर्शिता और प्रभावशाली लाने का प्रयास करता है, बल्कि जमाकर्ता और निवेशकों अधिकारों की रक्षा के लिए ठोस प्रावधान करता है। ये विधेयक रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया अधिनियम 1934, बैंकिंग अधिनियम 1949, भारतीय स्टेट बैंक अधिनियम 1955 और बैंकिंग कंपनियां अधिग्रहण और हस्तांतरण अधिनियम 1970 और 1980 में संशोधन करता है। इसमें माध्यम से बैंकिंग क्षेत्र में आधुनिक प्रबंध और संचालन के अनुसार बनाया गया है। इस बिल में संशोधन किए गए जिसके बारे में सभागृह में बात हुई है, मैं खाली टाइम का ये देखते हुए इसके लिए मेरे कुछ सुझाव है। इसके अंदर मेरा एक पहला सुझाव है, गैर न्याय परिसंपत्तियां एनपीएससी एक गंभीर समस्या है। भारतीय बैंकों, विशेष रूप से सार्वजनिक क्षेत्र के बैंकों में पीएसबीएस के सामने सबसे बड़ी चुनौती गैर निवादित परिसंपत्तियां नॉन परफॉर्मिंग एसेट की है। मार्च 2023 तक पीएसबीएस का संकलन एनपीए 5,53 लाख करोड़ था। ये समस्या न केवल बैंकों की लाभप्रदता को प्रभावित करती है, बल्कि ये ऋण विवरण की गति को भी धीमा करती है। एनपीए के कारण बैंकों का पूंजी आधार कमजोर होता है, जिससे विकसनशील क्षेत्रों को ऋण देना मुश्किल हो जाता है। मेरा सुझाव यह है कि बैंकों को एनपीए पहचान करने के लिए रिस्क मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम को सुदृढ़ किया जाए। सॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंकरप्सी कोड आईबीसी के तहत मामलों के तेजी से समाधान को प्राथमिकता दी जानी चाहिए। दूसरा विषय, साइबर सुरक्षा। डिजिटल बैंकिंग का खतरा। डिजिटल बैंकिंग के वृद्धि के साथ साइबर धोखाधड़ी की घटनाएं की भी बढ़ी है। 2023-24 में भारत में बैंकों में 25,000 से अधिक साइबर धोखाधड़ी के मामले दर्ज किए गए। ग्राहकों का डेटा और धन सुरक्षित रखने के में बैंकों को काफी चुनौतियों का सामना करना पड़ता है। मेरा सरकार से निवेदन है कि बैंकों का एआई सुधारित साइबर प्रणाली लागू करना चाहिए और ग्राहकों को कर्मचारियों के लिए साइबर सुरक्षा प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम आयोजित करना चाहिए। फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन। ग्रामीण और दूरदराज क्षेत्रों में बैंकिंग सेवाओं के सीमित पहुंच वित्तीय समावेश के लिए बड़ी चुनौती है। वित्तीय समावेश सूचकता 2023 के अनुसार कई राज्यों में बैंकिंग सेवा की पहुंच भी कमजोर है। ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में शाखा और एटीएम की संख्या बहुत कम है। मेरी सरकार से निवेदन है कि डिजिटल बैंकिंग सेवाओं के लिए इंटरनेट कनेक्टिविटी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को मजबूत करना चाहिए। मोबाइल बैंकिंग वैन और डिजिटल कियोस्कों की शुरुआत की जानी चाहिए और बैंकों को ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में शाखा खोलने के लिए प्रोत्साहित किया जाना चाहिए। सहकारी बैंकों की कमजोर स्थिति। सहकारी बैंकों का प्रशासन पूंजी आधार कमजोर है। कई सहकारी बैंकों में वित्तीय अनियमितता और भ्रष्टाचार के मामले सामने आते हैं। सबका सीधा प्रभाव छोटे जमाकर्ताओं और स्थानीय ग्राहकों पर पड़ता है। इसके लिए मेरा सुझाव है कि सहकारी बैंकों के लिए पारदर्शी प्रशासन तंत्र लागू किया जाए और सहकारी बैंकों को मजबूत करने के लिए केंद्र सरकार विशेष फंड प्रस्तावित करे। अध्यक्ष, सभापति महोदय, पीएमसी बैंक के बारे में हमारे एक सदस्य जी ने एक बात की। पंजाब एंड महाराष्ट्र कोऑपरेटिव एंड पीएमसी बैंक जैसे मामलों में जमाकर्ताओं को भारी परेशानी में डाला है। ग्राहकों की मेहनत की कमाई को वापस पाने के लिए उन्हें लंबा इंतजार करना पड़ा। इसके अंदर करीबन फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर जी आपको मैंने मिला था, उस टाइम भी आपने आंख में पानी लाया, मेरे आंख में भी पानी था कि इसके अंदर पीएमसी बैंक के अंदर करीबन 150 जो जमाकर्ता थे उनकी डेथ हो गई। 150। मेरा सरकार से निवेदन कि ऐसे लाखों अकाउंट होल्डर के साथ न्याय हो और सहकारी बैंकों के लिए व्यापक डिपॉजिट इंश्योरेंस योजना लागू की जाए। यह मामला न केवल बैंकिंग प्रणाली की खामियों को उजागर करता है, बल्कि भारतीय रिजर्व बैंक आरबीआई की निगरानी तंत्र की विफलता को भी ला सकता है। इसका कारण यह है कि जब पंजाब महाराष्ट्र बैंक के अंदर 25,000 फर्जी खाते खोले गए, तब हमारी आरबीआई के लोग जब चेक करने को जाते थे, उन्होंने क्या किया, जब 25,000 खाते खोले होते, तो इसके लिए मेरा सरकार से निवेदन है कि लाखों अकाउंट होल्डर के न्याय के लिए व्यापक डिपॉजिट इंश्योरेंस की योजना लागू की जाए। मामला केवल बैंकिंग प्रणाली को खामियों को उजागर करता है, बल्कि भारतीय रिजर्व बैंक के मैंने जो कहा कि निगरानी तंत्र की विफलता को भी दिखाता है। पीएमसी बैंक में धोखाधड़ी और कुप्रबंधन के कारण लाखों जमाकर्ताओं को अपनी मेहनत की कमाई तक पहुंचने से रोका गया है। आरबीआई जो देश की बैंकिंग प्रणाली का संरक्षक है, इस घोटाले को रोकने के असफल रहा। इतना ही नहीं, यूनिटी फाइनेंस जैसे बैंक का प्रबंधन सौंपा गया था, अब जब जमाकर्ताओं को उनकी राशि लौटाने असफल रही है, भले ही उनकी धनराशि की वसूली कर रहे। वर्ष 2021 से आरबीआई ने सेंट्रम फाइनेंस और भारत के साथ पीएनसी बैंक के विलय को मंजूरी दी, जिसमें यूनिटी बैंक का गठन हुआ। यह निर्णय बैंक बंद होने के 2 साल बाद किया गया, जबकि जमाकर्ता अपनी जमा राशि तक पहुंचने के लिए संघर्ष कर रहे थे, यानी 150 लोग मर गए। यह चौंकाने बात वाली है कि इस बैंक जिसमें केवल 20 दिनों के अंदर यस बैंक के लिए केवल 20 दिनों में 15,000 करोड़ के बेल आउट के साथ बचाया गया, वही पीएमसी बैंक उनको एनपीए मात्र 6,000 करोड़ था और जिसके पास 10 लाख ग्राहक थे को ऐसे बेल आउट का लाभ नहीं दिया गया। इसके बजाय डीआईसीजी ने सेंट्रम फाइनेंस को 4,500 करोड़ का लगभग बिना ब्याज वाला ऋण प्रदान किया और बैंक की 1 मिनट से संपत्ति जिसका कीमत करोड़ रुपए के जिसमें हवाला दिया। पीएमसी बैंक के करीबन 1,500 करोड़ के मानक ऋण से थे जो नियमित आय दे रहे थे। इसके बावजूद इंडी बैंक ने जमाकर्ताओं को उनकी पूर्ण राशि लौटाने में इनकार कर दिया। हर जमाकर्ताओं को केवल 6 लाख का भुगतान दिया गया, चाहे उनकी जमा राशि करोड़ों रुपए क्यों न हो। उनका परिणाम ये हुआ कि लाखों ग्राहक खासकर वरिष्ठ नागरिक अपनी दैनिक खर्चों, चिकित्सा आवश्यकता और अन्य उत्तराय के लिए संघर्ष कर रहे। एचडीएफसी की संपत्ति और अन्य ऋणों के वन टाइम सेटलमेंट के हजारों करोड़ रुपए की वसूली हो चुकी हुई या नहीं ये मुझे मालूम नहीं, फिर भी यूनियन बैंक ने ग्राहकों को उनकी राशि का पूरा भुगतान करने के बजाय 10 लाख जमा करने के वालों ग्राहकों को वन टाइम सेटलमेंट के तरह केवल 6 लाख का भुगतान दिया, जिसमें बैंक ने 4 लाख का तुरंत लाभ उठाया। आरबीआई की अमल गणेश योजना के अनुसार यूनिटी बैंक से 40,000 ग्राहकों को 9 लाख राशि जनवरी 27 तक किस्तों में लौटाएंगी और शेष राशि 2032 तक यानी पूरे 8 वर्षों के बाद लौटाएंगी जाएंगी। ये योजना ग्राहकों के साथ एक बड़ा अन्याय है। ये संकट न केवल वित्तीय है बल्कि नैतिक और सामाजिक भी है। लाखों ग्राहकों की मेहनत की कमाई को इस प्रकार से बर्बाद होने देखता दुखद घटना है। मैं सरकार को विनती करता हूँ, मेरी मांग है, 1 मिनट में मेरी मांगे रखता हूँ, सिर्फ सभी ग्राहकों को उनकी जमा राशि को तुरंत और पूरा भुगतान सुनिश्चित किया जाए। दूसरा, आरबीआई की स्वीकृति को जांच की जाए और भविष्य में ऐसा मामला न बचने के लिए ठोस नीति बनाए। तीसरा, यूनिटी बैंक को वसूली गई राशि का उपयोग ग्राहकों को राहत प्रदान करना चाहिए, न कि मुनाफा कमाने के लिए। चौथा, एनसीएलटी जैसे संस्थाओं के माध्यम से मामलों का तेजी से निपटवारा करना चाहिए। अध्यक्ष महोदय, सभापति महोदय, माननीय मंत्री महोदय, स्थिति के केवल जमाकर्ताओं के साथ अन्याय है बल्कि हमारे बैंकिंग प्रणाली की विश्वासता पर भी सवाल खड़े रहते हैं। मेरा लास्ट है, बैंकिंग कानून संशोधन 2024 हमारी बैंकिंग क्षेत्र अधिक सशक्त, पारदर्शिता, उदारतादायी बनाने की दिशा में एक दूरदर्शी कदम है। ये विधेयक न केवल हमारे बैंकिंग तंत्र को आधुनिक बनाए बल्कि ग्राहकों, निवेशकों और बैंकों के लिए सुरक्षित वातावरण निर्माण करेगा। इस विधेयक का पूर्ण समर्थन करता हूं और आग्रह करता हूं कि मेरे द्वारा किए गए सुझावों पर भी विचार किया जाए। साथ में पीएमसी ग्राम ग्राहकों के शीघ्र न्याय की मांग करता हूं। फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर, इसके बारे में आप अपने भाषण में
श्री कोंडा विश्वास
उत्तर देंगे और उनका जो न्याय मिलेगा इसकी मैं आपके माध्यम से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं।
सर, थैंक यू सर।
प्लीज।
Thank you, sir. The banks have a vital role in the nation's growth and development. They offer capital and financial services to industry, small business, and individuals, enabling them to thrive, sir. The Banking Laws Amendment Bill 2024 was introduced on August this year, and the bill aims to bring about better governance, standardized definition of terms, standardized reports, greater autonomy to cooperatives, and protect the depositors. These are all part of the much needed reforms in the banking industry, sir. And I feel all parties should support the bill, and so I'm glad to see some of the opposition party members also supporting this bill in the interest of the nation. However, sir, some members have reservations. One of the members from Congress seems to be opposing on certain grounds. In fact, there's no consistency. There's opposition among themselves, sir. The member from Congress was saying he's not here, so I'm not taking his name, that this bill is an attack on the very federal system and the federal structure of this country because it goes into the cooperative banks, which is a state subject. But yet another member, honorable member, I think Saugat Rai, from Trinamool Congress says this is superfluous, and these are very simple, and these could have been amendments that have been done through administrative decision, sir. So two sides of the opposition are opposing one another, sir. See, the honorable member from Congress who feels that the federal structure is threatened should know that if anything, any bill was against the federal structure, it is the 97th Amendment of the Cooperative that the Congress government brought in 2011, sir. And while the entire bill was not struck down by the Supreme Court, those aspects of the bill which actually infringed upon the state authority, the Supreme Court struck it down in July 20th, sir. So if anything is against the federal structure, it is a Congress bill. Federalism khatre mein hai, that is because of Congress UPA bill, sir. But lekin आरोप हमारे पास है that we threaten the federal structure, sir. Some feel, sir, some feel that 5 legislation through one bill is too much, but imagine 19 amendments through 19 bills. It will take several years to pass in this house full of disruption, thanks to the opposition, sir. Also, they have forgotten that in 2013, the NDA government amended it's a nice bill, sir, it's a right to fair compensation and transparency in the Land Acquisition Act of 2013. This amendment also amended several bills, including National Highways Act and Railways Act, showcasing the pattern of and the comprehensive legislation aimed to address a critical issue, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. You are a lawyer. We'll discuss this. Sir, our government recognized the need for reforms in the banking sector after the previous Congress government left the banks in doldrums with humongous NPAs, leaving many banks on the verge of collapse, sir. So, Honorable Member Gaurav Gogaiji talked about the chronology, sir. So, give me a minute to talk about the chronology, sir. We heard the history of banking industry from 1969, where the banks were suddenly nationalized overnight. Suddenly nationalized overnight. It doesn't matter who opposed. From the sudden nationalization, let's discuss. It happened. Whether it's good or bad can be discussed later, but it happened. One more thing, sir, I respect the sentiment and the sensitivity of my colleagues from Congress party, so I will not take the names, but the scam that happened right here, sir, on the Parliament Street branch, now the Sansad Marg branch. I will not take names, but at least let's see what we can learn from it. Somebody called and 60 lakhs was transferred. What we can learn from it is there was lack of good governance, there was no checks and balances, and the bankers feared their political bosses, sir. So instead of what we needed was regulation, not merely nationalization and political influence, sir. But after that, to the abyss of the 90s, where the entire nation was on the verge of bankruptcy and due to political influence and lack of checks and balance. In 1991, India faced the worst economic crisis on the brink of sovereign default. India's foreign exchanges for less than $6 billion, enough to meet 2 meals of country's imports, sir. The Congress government those days made the word Hindu very, very popular all across the world, sir. They made the word Hindu very popular. They referred to the Hindu growth of rate. The Hindu growth of rate was referring to the abysmally slow rate of economic growth in India, and the banking and global economists, this was a popular term to refer to India. Everybody looked down upon India, sir. But 2 or 3% negative growth rate during your UPA times. There were 2 years negative.
कहीं तो देखा है।
हर जगह देखे हुए लैमिनेट्स ऐसे ही याद आ जाते हैं। अपने घर में कुछ अलग कीजिए मेरिनो लैमिनेट्स के साथ। मेरिनो लैमिनेट्स, बी डिफरेंट।
Yes, sir. But Honorable Member Gaurav Gogaiji also referred to devaluation, sir, of the Indian rupees. Sir, during that time, in 1 week, 2 times devaluation, total more than 21% devaluation, sir. Economy is stable. The rupee is stabler than any currency in the world today, sir. Sir, it was, I'm proud to say it was P.V. Narasimha Rao, sir, the then Congress Prime Minister. He's from my state. He steered the country to the mess and brought major reforms against nationalization and against the nationalization policy, got in liberalization and privatization. But this is where it is a directionless, sir. Once they say nationalization, once they say liberalization, and now again they oppose many contemporary economic policies, sir. It's the inconsistency and the lack of direction was the hallmark of the UPA governments, and this led to the tumultuous situation in the bank. But even after the reforms of the 90s, things were not so well, sir. Sir, we remember, we all actually appreciated, regardless of which party, there was huge growth rate, sir, in the subsequent UPA government, but actually what was hidden was all the NPAs amounting to lakhs of crores, sir. They were unrecoverable loans hidden under different classification of NPAs. Sir, Kalyan Banerjee had just mentioned that jugglery of words, sir. The jugglery of words and terminology was done during Congress government, sir. They were unrecoverable loans hidden under different classification of NPAs, sir. And everybody knew it. The bankers knew it, and the officials knew it, and of course the ministry knew it. But nobody had the courage to tell that the banks were totally bankrupt, sir. It's like the story, the emperor's new clothes, sir. Nobody had the courage to say the emperor is totally naked and the banks are totally bankrupt. It is after the Modi government, we recognized this problem, we pointed it out. And why was this problem, sir? It was due to stressed asset, including aggressive lending practices, willful defaults, loan frauds, corruption, and also one valid reason, economic slowdown. But under the UPA governments, the bank were heavily influenced by political interests and they extended loans to borrowers who had little intention of paying back, sir. So in those days, I think my colleague was referring to our phone banking. If you wanted a loan, you don't run to the bank or the bank manager. You run to the MLA or MP or the minister to get a loan, sir. After the NDA took office, Modiji government recognized the problem and introduced a bill, sir, called FRDI, Financial Resolution and Deposit Insurance. There was a little opposition, so they sent it to a select committee. I was on that committee, sir. And on this committee, we were shocked to find the so-called growing economy had so many skeletons hidden in the various reports. They know. This is the banking. This is about banking.
Okay, please address the chair.
Yeah.
Honourable member, please address the chair.
It is then
Try to confine yourself within the scope of the bill, please.
Yes, sir. 94. Only banking. I'm not talking about taxation, GST, Adani, all those. I'm talking only about banking, sir.
No politics.
No politics.
Yes.
Only banking. So FRDA is banking, sir. The bill was later withdrawn because of many irrational as well as some rational reasons, sir. And because although we had a majority, we wanted to build consensus, sir. But nevertheless, the arop on us is we have a brute majority and we force it through, sir. The bill, FRDI bill, was well-meaning bill and we withdrew it, but ended up with a series of reforms which transformed the banking sector. Today, the banks have not only turned around but thriving. PSU bank share prices increased 200 to 300%. The market capitalization of SBI, those days if a small investor wanted to invest, he would invest in Wipro or TCS or Infosys. But now, if you invest in these, they doubled and tripled their money in just 2 years, 200, 300% return. And not only that, the McKinsey report praises us. There are many key legal procedures, sir, and I will not go through it because many speakers have already gone through it. But India's infrastructure requirement funds is about 1/10 of the GDP, and it is estimated to need about 1.43 lakh crores. And India depends on our banking sector to be healthy and thriving. It is miraculous about the turnaround, sir. It is really miraculous. and nobody believed in 2014 this would happen. So there's also, many are talking about what about the poorer sections, what about the depressed sections. Sir, lot of us completed our Disha meeting, sir. That's our responsibility in our constituency. In the Disha meeting, we have a meeting with the lead bankers, sir. And we